Welcome to the FMC Lounge, everyone. I am your host, Joe for show, and in this video today, we will be going over the new Descendant, Keelan, that came out for Season 2 of the first Descendant. We'll be going over why I think he's a top tier for Void Vessel, 400% dungeon, and any other activity you use to farm or mob around with. How to properly play and use his skill, mainly his onslaught ability, and what buff he needs to be able to be a bossy Descendant as well. Before we jump into this video, if you enjoy this kind of content for a first Descendant, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below. That will really help with the YouTube algorithm. Enough of the yapping, let's jump straight into the video. First, let's go over Keelan's ability and his passive. We're going to start with his passive, which is Erosion. Using the skill increases the acid diffusion level and grants the agility passive effect to yourself after a certain number of uses. If the non-combatant state is maintained, the fusion level will gradually decrease and the agility effect is removed. So basically, within a 10-second window, the longer you will use your skill, you will not lose your agility stack or buff. You can keep it up, which is going to give you 12% movement speed. For his first ability, is Void Corrosion. Shoots a little like toxic void dart. When it hits an enemy, they're gonna hit with acid erosion, and additional damage is dealt if the target already has acid erosion. So if you use this on the same target again, it's going to do more damage. It has a low cooldown of 12 seconds. We could get that much lower. I'll show you in the build later on in the video. The second ability is Onslaught. This is the one that most people want to use and we're looking forward to use. It's a dashing forward, dealing damage to pierce targets. It grants a knockback effect and explosive damage to enemies at the end point of the dash. Applies acid erosion as well. Additional damage is dealt if the target already had acid erosion. So it's pretty nice if you use your first ability and then you use your second ability afterwards if the enemy doesn't die. Now, a lot of people are probably thrown off by the 55-second cooldown, but later on in the video, I'll show you how you can have this up infinitely. You will never have to worry about this going down, and you also get 5 stacks of this, so you could use this a lot, spam it, and like I said, we'll go over in the video and I'll show you that. His third ability is Septic Gust. Deals damage to enemies within a range and inflicts acid decay. If enemies within range are inflicted with acid decay, inflicts blood rot. Blood rot explodes, dealing damage to the target and enemies within range. Now, if you run into an enemy and you haven't used your first or second ability on him, you can use this ability, Acid Decay, which is your erosion, and you only just get a 5 stack. But let's say you use your first ability or your second ability on enemy that's still alive. If you go and use this third ability, that's how you proc the Blood Rot, which is going to be able to do more damage. And this fourth ability, Tremor, if enemies within range have Acid Decay, the erosion on them, the erosion, you deal damage proportional to the amount of acid decay. And if you notice right here, your acid decay is max stacks is 5. So if you have a 5 stack, you get the most damage. There are no enemies within range for the acid decay. Increase the amount of onslaught stacks. So let's just say there's no enemy within range. If I use my fourth ability, it's going to give me 3 free onslaught stacks back. But with my build, we're using this as a damage. We don't need that onslaught stack to come back. Like I said, I'll explain more in the video. Now for my build, my mobbing build, it's going to be focused around our onslaught ability. And because it's toxic and singular, the mods we are going to be using are focus on toxic and focus on singular. We're using these instead of the blue mod that's going to give you just more damage, but because of the skill cooldown. We want as much skill cooldown as possible. We are also going to be running toxic amplification and singular amplification for even more damage. We are also going to be running 2 cooldown mods, MP Conversion and Nimble Fingers, because like I said, we want as much cooldown as possible. I also run 2 HP mods because I don't like my character to be a glass cannon. I like to be sort of tanky a little bit. Now let's just say that's not your playstyle. If you could take one of these HP mods off and you could actually throw on a Venom Synctium to give yourself a little bit more toxic skill power if you want. I am also running 2 range mods. Now the main reason we are running 2 range mods is you come over here on Onslaught, and if you look at all the stats to the side, you notice the skill effect in green letters, right? Under that skill effect, you're gonna see max move distance. Under that one, you're gonna see stack cooldown reduction pure pierce. This is how you're going to have infinite spam with your second ability. And I'm running 2 range mods because if you look a little bit lower, my pierce range, it went up. And you see how it's in the green. It's 4.9 by 2.4 meters instead of 2 meters by 1 meter. And my range is 12 meters instead of 5. This is why I'm running 2 range mods. Now you can get rid of this range mod if you want and throw on, let's just say, HP collector in the future, especially if you take off one of these range mods and if you want some kind of healing. And the main reason why I recommend HP collector, because it's going to help you survive if you're on the glass cannon build. One thing I like to use in my build is to focus on Prey Transcendent mod. And the main reason why is I like how it's going to single one enemy and all my darts are going to focus on that enemy. I mainly use it for yellow bar enemies so I can get that little bit more damage. And if you notice, when I don't have it, when I'm not using the Transcendent mod, as you see in the video display, it's going to shoot 3 enemies. But when we equip it, it's only going to be 1. I want it to focus more on the yellow bar enemy. It also gives you a cooldown as well. If you notice, let's take it off real quick. Our cooldown's at 1.8, but if I equip it, our cooldown's at 1.2, so it allows me to spam this more on yellow bar enemies. Now when it comes to the reactor, you're going to want one that's toxic singular, and for the 2 stats at bottom, you want a cooldown mod. It's the main mod you want. The second one, it's up to you. You could go for a toxic skill power or singular skill power. Either one works fine. I'm just using this one because the skill cooldown. The skill cost, it doesn't work with none of his builds because it's not mana, it's, you know, custom resources. So like I said, just make sure you have skill cooldown on the bottom stat. We're also running 2-piece annihilation set. I'm just using it just to be a little bit more tanky, but it does help out with the duration a bit. As you see over here, our duration does go up from 10 seconds to 10.6, but I'm not really using it for that. I'm mainly using it just for the defense and HP, just so I can be a little bit more tanky. You can, you know, switch these off and use some, I guess, something else, whatever you prefer. But we are using the 2-piece hunter component set. This is a must, and the main reason why is the skill cooldown negative 4.8. This is why you want it. You want skill cooldown. Having this will help give everything a very low cooldown. As you notice, my 4th ability, it's on 8-second cooldown, which will allow me to spam my 4th ability more for damage instead of, or if you need to, you give yourself more onslaught stacks. Same with my 3rd ability, it's on a 5-second cooldown. This is on an 8-second cooldown. As you've seen earlier, this is on the 1.2. Now for your weapons, it's really up to you. I like to use this because it's very, you know, overpower in the void vessels and other activities as well. And smithereen, I think, is a must. And the main reason why is it helps you make up for that lack of damage that you do against bosses in 400% dungeons and void vessel. So I highly recommend getting a smithereen. Now with the recent update that happened yesterday from this video for hotfix 1.2.2, there was a buff to Keelan, which gives him a lot of cooldown buffs, mainly his 3rd and 4th ability. And with that happening, with the mobile strike Transcendent mod, you could actually spam your build another way without even needing enemies in front of you. Give you a demonstration. So right now we're just going to, you know, use his onslaught abilities to build our stack up. Once we can use our 3rd ability, we're gonna pop the 3rd ability, and you could just spam this over and over and over and over and over, and keep building your stuff up. By the time your 3rd ability is back, you go again. You don't need to pierce to enemies. So this is another way you could keep spamming your pierce build if you don't want to use the other build I showed, focus on prey. And the only thing that you need to change from our focus on prey build is, instead of 2 range mod, you want to run 2 duration mods, which will give your duration in 7 seconds, will give you enough time to be able to spam the build as you see in the display I just showed. Now for the focus on prey build, the way to have infinite stacks without even using mobile strike is based on your piercing. When you, like I said earlier in the video, when you pierce through an enemy, you get a 5-second cooldown. So as long as you pierce through 2 enemies, you'll always have your onslaught. And so it's always going to be there. This is how you seen earlier in the gameplay. Now I was doing 400% dungeons, I was able to have the spam. Now let's say you're not doing an activity that has a lot of enemies, but like I just showed you, you only need 2. So you could use this in other activities. It does not need to be in Void Vessel or 400% dungeons. You will always have your second ability. It will always be active, and doing so you'll always have your fourth ability as a damage mod. Reason I think he's a top tier mobber farmer using 400% dungeons or Void Vessel because of the two builds I show you. Depending on which Transcendent mods you use, this is why I think he's a lead above so many other Descendants in the game right now when it comes to these activities. The only one that stands above him is Freyna and Bunny, and that's because of their wide range attack and how fast they could clear all those enemies out before Keelan. Now if you are doing any of these activities solo, the damage is not really an issue. You could do so much damage with any of his abilities, especially on a focus and pray when you just spam his first ability that's on a 1.2 cooldown and paired up with the smithereen combo. The damage you could do is insane. Now if you are in a team group, depending on which activity you do, sometimes the boss will be tanky, but there are other bosses where his skill and smithereen still will smash through the enemy's health. Now one of the reasons why I say Keelan needs a damage buff and not a cooldown mods, as you see earlier in the video, I explained how I'm able to spam his ability and how I got all his cooldowns on a super low timer, but he's struggling against elite bosses for Void Vessels and 40% dungeons. A lot of that has to do with his first ability, skill power modifier. It just is too low. It's only 250, and his fourth ability, now this is 1700. That's pretty high. The problem is your erosion stacks only get to 5. Now if you throw on your focus on prey, your stack can get to 20, but my modifier is still only 288. And over here, our fourth ability, it actually went down to 690. So we lost so much skill modifier, which just basically over 1,000. It makes no sense at all. And the main reason why I say it makes no sense at all, if you look at Ultimate Sharon that also came out in season 2, one of her buffs is her first ability got an insane damage buff. Look at the skill power modifier, it's at 1300, but Keelan is under 300. Another reason why I say his fourth ability needs a buff, if you come over to Viessa, her fourth ability Blizzard, it sits at 1400 skill power modifier, and even when I use the Transcendence mod called Bloodness, which will give me more skill power, it doesn't go down. This is why Keelan needs a damage buff more than a cooldown buff. Even with the recent buff that he got yesterday, as of me making this video with the hotfix 1.2.2, it's still not enough. Now for the rest of the video, I'm going to have a gameplay of me doing a 400% dungeon run where I'm using the focus on prey build that I showed earlier. I'm going to show you that you can have infinite spam, keep your onslaught stack up without having to use your fourth ability to give yourself your onslaught stack. You can use your fourth ability as strictly as damage. For anyone who's watching, I hope y'all have a great day, rest of the night, and upcoming weekend, and happy early holidays. I'll catch y'all in the next video.